While Canadian consumers might be spared the worst of it, American shoppers are about to get hit.
In a clear sign that Donald Trump's trade war is really starting to bite, Walmart is now the latest retailer to warn of imminent price hikes.
For over 25 years, a parcel shipping company faithfully served its clientele, 99% of whom were Canadian.
The difference between COVID and now is people still wanted their stuff, so people were ordering and we shipped to them. And now a lot of customers just don't even want to come. Lots of them have said, we'll see you in 4 years.
But a dramatic decline in business recently forced its doors to close. The quiet North has shifted. For decades, Canada has been viewed as a courteous and dependable neighbor of the United States, content to follow the economic and strategic cues of its southern ally. But what if Canada is no longer simply playing catch-up? What if, while the U.S. is entangled in tariff wars and subsidy debates, Canada is quietly rewriting the rules of global trade? One deliberate move at a time. Canada isn't clamoring for attention. It's not issuing bold proclamations or chasing headlines. Instead, it's executing a sector-by-sector master plan to secure the essential building blocks of tomorrow's economy: critical minerals, electric vehicle supply chains, green trade alliances, and Indo-Pacific partnerships. And make no mistake, this isn't coincidence. It's strategy, and it's working. The quiet ascent of a trade powerhouse. Canada's rise begins with its commanding position in the critical minerals that underpin next-generation technologies: lithium, cobalt, nickel, and rare earths. While the U.S. is still discussing how to counter China's dominance in the EV sector, Canada has already leaped ahead. It doesn't merely possess these resources. It has secured the infrastructure to extract, refine, and export them before its competitors, even since the race had begun. Nickel from Ontario, cobalt from Quebec, graphite from the Yukon. These aren't just Canadian assets. They're part of a broader vision. Canada is supplying the very metals that American EVs depend on, without waiting for Washington's blessing. The EV ecosystem, Canada's masterstroke. Where Canada's strategy truly shines is in its EV supply chain. With multi-billion-dollar investments from global automakers like Volkswagen, Stellantis, and LG Energy, Canada has positioned itself as North America's battery hub. This didn't happen by accident. Canada is creating entire ecosystems, from mines and refineries to gigafactories, primarily in Ontario and Quebec. While the U.S. navigates political rifts over labor laws and subsidies, Canada signs quiet yet consequential agreements with industry giants like BASF and Umicore. These aren't just manufacturing plants. They're anchors in a supply chain that Canada now controls. Through provisions in the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act, many American EV tax credits will hinge on components sourced from Canadian soil. Ottawa calls it a victory, and rightly so. A foundation, not a flash. Instead of chasing fleeting attention, Canada has laid down the foundation: logistical networks, refining plants, and long-term deals. And now, American automakers need Canada more than the other way around. Canada's play isn't about exporting raw resources. It's about controlling the pressure points in global trade. The nation that refines critical minerals sets the rules. And Canada is becoming that crucial middleman. New lithium processing plants in Quebec and Manitoba are already reducing global dependence on Chinese refineries, sometimes with financial assistance from the U.S. itself, via the Defense Production Act. Trade diplomacy with precision. While the U.S. is locked in geopolitical posturing, Canada is forging quiet but enduring ties with Indo-Pacific nations like Vietnam, Indonesia, and India, regions rich in resources and manufacturing potential. These partnerships aren't built on headlines, but on memoranda, pilot projects, and logistics hubs. Canada's $2.3 billion Indo-Pacific Trade Initiative underscores its commitment to supply chain resilience, infrastructure, and shared growth, without demanding loyalty in return. Agile, trusted, unburdened. Perhaps Canada's greatest advantage lies in its market agility. Under the USMCA, Canadian exports flow freely into the U.S. But Canada also holds trade agreements with the EU, the UK, and multiple Pacific nations, networks the U.S. does not yet enjoy. This enables Canadian goods, whether technology, minerals, or EV components, to reach international markets with speed and efficiency. Where U.S. product encounter red tape, Canadian exports slip through with ease. American companies, burdened by delays and policy uncertainty, increasingly rely on Canadian routes to access tax credits and bypass bureaucratic hurdles. Canada didn't bend the rules. It built a smarter system, the strategic middle ground. Foreign investment in Canadian tech, mining, and logistics is surging, especially from global firms wary of U.S.-China tensions. Canada is constructing a trade web that spans continents, yet it does so without the political noise. Where the U.S. once assumed Canada would simply follow, the opposite is now true. Canada is leveraging European capital, Asian demand, and North American access to form a strategic trifecta. When Ottawa first unveiled its Indo-Pacific strategy, skeptics called it vague. Today, it stands as one of the wisest moves Canada has made. The global economic center is drifting east, and while the U.S. scrambles to reclaim influence, Canada is already there, building relationships, securing resources, and laying down corridors of trade. A new trade blueprint. This is not the Canada of old, trailing behind American policy. This is a new archetype, measured, proactive, and quietly competitive. Canada doesn't seek to replace the U.S., but rather to ensure that when the global economy pivots, it is already in position. The numbers speak volumes. Trade beyond the U.S. is growing rapidly. Exports to Asia and the EU are climbing. Investment is reaching record highs. Where the U.S. demands allegiance, Canada offers stability. Where others shout, Canada delivers. The beauty of Canada's strategy lies in its subtlety. No fanfare, no spectacle, just a steady, unrelenting climb. While others argue Canada builds, and by the time the world notices, it may already be too late. The final question. So, is Canada outpacing the United States in global trade? Not in size, but in sophistication, adaptability, and trust. It didn't overpower its rivals. It outmaneuvered them. The quiet player is no longer on the sidelines. It's at the center of the board, playing a long game and winning